2020 to order at 7 o'clock. Roll call, please.
President Jones,
Present.
Vice President Williams, Commissioner Darrow,
Present.
Commissioner Richard,
Present.
Commissioner Haluka,
Present.
Solicitor Stone.
Here.
And Solicitor Stone, would you read into the record an explanation of the meeting format?
Yes, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and Pennsylvania emergency management restrictions, the regularly scheduled and advertised public meetings of Aleppo Township Board of Commissioners will be temporarily modified to 15 requirements as follows. The meetings will take place as scheduled on the third Monday of each month at 7 o'clock p.m. The municipal building will be closed to visitors, but the public is encouraged to participate by submitting comments to the manager via email or other electronic means ahead of the meeting, or by submitting their comments by electronic means during the meeting. Instructions for submitting comments will be posted on the township website. The meeting will be restricted to essential business only and may proceed in a modified manner as permitted by Act 15, with one or more commissioners attending remotely through authorized electronic means. The meeting agenda will be posted on the township's website a week prior to the meeting. Unofficial minutes will be published no later than 3 days after the meeting. These procedures will remain in effect until the governor's emergency declaration is lifted, at which time the township will resume its regular meeting procedures and will welcome the public back to attend in person.
Thank you, Solicitor Stone. Do I hear a motion to approve the May 11th, 2020 workshop meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So this evening, we have Zach Willard from Public Financial Management in Harrisburg. And Zach assisted us in the refinancing of the bonds in 2015. Zach's here to make a presentation on our plans for this potential refinancing. So Zach, if you might, could you give us a quick overview of PFM and a quick briefing of the schedule of events leading up to the decision to refinance and the action that you'd like us to take tonight?
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing as well as you can be. So again, I'm Zach Williard from Public Financial Management. My firm serves as independent financial advisor to local governments and school districts and counties and all over the state and all over the country. We're the leading financial advisor both in Pennsylvania and across the nation. Okay. And so what we do is we help local governments when they have new projects and they want to finance them, or in this case, we're talking about existing debt and we're going to refinance it for interest rate savings, similar to what you do if you're going to refinance your home mortgage and save some money. Okay. Now we've honestly been talking about this one since, I don't know, it's been at least 2 years. We've been kind of following the markets. Now, legally, you can't refinance this bond issue until December 1st of this year, okay? So while we've been talking about it and we've kind of been giving you updates over the past, 18 or 24 months, really this is the time now where we can start to actually get some of the work done that will then lead into the refinancing to take place later this summer, all right? So we're kind of working backwards from that December 1st, 2020 date. And that leads us to tonight's meeting. Now, I think you do have either a handout in front of you or it was emailed to you. Is that right, Gwen?
Yes, they have it.
So if everyone has that, maybe we could flip through it. I don't know if, Gwen, can you put that on the screen or should I?
I think it'd be easier if you shared your screen. I don't have it right at my fingertips.
So if I... Tell me if that worked. Did that work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what we'll do is we'll walk through this. Feel free to ask questions as we go through these pages because I know some of you haven't been through this before. Okay, but what we're talking about is refinancing your series of 2015 bond issue. The 2015 bonds actually refinanced the 2011 bonds, and the 2011 bonds were used as a sewer, a big upgrade for your sewer plant and some pump stations, and I think a whole plethora of projects. Okay, so what we did in 2015 was we refinanced because interest rates were lower, and believe it or not, and I think you probably know if given all this COVID stuff going on, interest rates are at all-time lows again. So it's kind of the perfect storm from a timing perspective that your call date is here this December and interest rates are very low. So the first thing we'll do here is flip to this interest rate chart. Let me my screen around. So this is called the 10-year MMD. What it is a benchmark in the tax exempt world that we follow. And this part of the page here shows going back the last 30 years where interest rates have been. And if you look in the far right-hand corner, you can see basically they've trickled down. Now, there was a big spike back in the beginning of March, and that was when the markets all went into free fall due to the pandemic. There was a big spike up, but now interest rates are back down and the markets have settled. And if I scroll down here, I can show you that. So you can see on the far right-hand side of the screen, the lowest point in interest rate history was early March, and you can see that on this graph. So we're right above that all-time low. Okay, so interest rates are very low. It's a perfect time to do this. You have an opportunity to save some pretty good money if they remain, relatively low. This next page is a timeline that just kind of gets us to what I was talking about, which was that December 1st call date. Now, a call date on a bond issue typically is 5 years in Pennsylvania. So that's what you had. So that's why 5 years ago we did the same thing. The rule is you can refinance the bonds as long as you're within 90 days of the call date. So if we settle a transaction within 90 days of December 1st, that kind of brings us back to what we have here, September 3rd. Okay, so we can close the refinancing as early as September 3rd. It's not the only date, it's the first date. So again, moving backwards, just in a chain of events, you can see on July 28th, we have an interest rate lock. That's the earliest possible day we can lock rates and then settle the transaction on September 3rd. So that kind of meets all the timing guidelines. Now with a bond issue, there's lots of kind of paperwork and back office things. We have to kind of torture Gwen a little bit, put together a big, thick prospectus, and then we have to go to the credit rating agencies to get a rating so that when we sell the bonds, we can use the credit rating. Now, in the back of the handout, I put the credit rating from 2015 in. So we'll go through all that. So what we're asking for tonight, if you're ready to move forward, which is this first line item here, is an authorization for the financing team to proceed. Okay. That doesn't lock you into doing anything. All that does is it allows PFM, it allows your bond counsel, which in 2015 was Dinsmore and Scholl, and it allows your underwriter, who's the investment banker who's going to actually sell the bonds. That was Benning and Scattergood. It allows us to kind of get all the things done. There's no cost to doing the authorization and just kind of getting through all this, so that on June 15th, you could actually pass a debt resolution, okay, which would be or debt ordinance, which would be the final action needed by the board in order to move forward with the refinancing. And then what we'll do at that point is kind of continue to finish all the paperwork and we'll monitor the markets. Now, what we'll want to do on June 15th, similar to what we did in the past, I apologize if you can hear my little kid screaming in the background, is we'll want to set a minimum savings threshold. And what that means is when we go through this refinancing process, we only want to actually execute the refinancing as long as we can save what's meaningful to your budget. Okay, so we'll set some type of a minimum number so that we know we can get prepared and kind of get all this 8 to 10 weeks of legwork out of the way. And if the market is still right on July 28th, we can then hop into the market, lock in the interest rate, and save the township the money. Okay. Now going back to 2015, I looked. We saved $1.2 million on that refinancing, net of costs. That's a lot. I don't know if we're going to get that lucky this time because we're already refinancing, low interest rates that were refinanced once. but we still want this to be impactful. So, we don't want to set a minimum savings threshold of, $50,000 or something. I mean, I would recommend it's, at least 150, 200,000, if, somewhere in that range as a minimum. And then we'll try to save as much as we can. If interest rates are very low and we can save $1 million again, well, that's what we'll do. But we just want to have a floor so that we know if we aren't above that floor, what we do is we go into a holding pattern and wait until the markets return to, something that would achieve that dollar savings for you. That was a mouthful. I'm going to pause there and just quick, is there any questions about the timeline or kind of what the next steps would be? Okay. So that's the timeline. We'll scroll down here to the next page. So this is your existing debt now. Okay, this is your 2015 bonds in column 2, and you can see what the payments are. Now the interest rates are fixed, so these are exactly what your payments will be if you do nothing. Okay, and the final maturity is 2041. What we're talking about doing here is, again, taking the old higher rate and replacing it with a new lower rate. The important point being is that we're not going to extend the final maturity. So it's going to keep the same final maturity as you have now, and we're simply going to lower the payments like we did in 2015, okay? And as you keep scrolling down here, you can see at the bottom of the page, it says call date December 1st, 2020. And again, that's the first possible date. So that's why we didn't do this a year ago, because we legally we couldn't have. And that's why we're kind of preparing now, even though December 1 sounds far away. Today's the right time to start all of these things so that we can potentially lock in rates as soon as we're legally able to. And then, so this is kind of the last page here. I'm going to zoom out so we can see it a little better. This is a summary page of refinancing options. We put 3 of them on here after talking with Gwen and George, over the past few months on, what we think might work best. So option 1 in the blue is if we just took today's interest rates, okay, and we refinance the debt, and again, we keep the same final maturity. Column 5 shows you if we took the savings level over the life of the debt, that you'd save somewhere between 20 and 25,000 a year. And the total net savings at the bottom of column 5 is about 455,000 over the life. And you kind of get some of that every year as shown in column 5. Okay. What option 2 is in the red is if we did the same thing, but the township also used some of the sewer fund reserves to pay off some of the debt. Okay. And we spread that savings over the life. So what you see in column 2 is you scroll down, it says cash contribution. In option 1, it said 0. Option 2, it says 250,000. And then when you look at column 6, you can see instead of saving somewhere between 20 and 25,000 a year, you're saving, somewhere between 33 and 38,000 a year, let's call it, in column 6. Does that make sense to everybody, the difference?
Yeah.
And then option 3 is just a more extreme version where you're using 400,000 of cash, and same kind of result is in column 7. You can see the savings is spread out more evenly over the life. So, as far as budgetary relief goes, if you use no cash, you can save, 20,000, 25,000 a year, and hopefully we can do better. These are a little conservative by today's numbers because we still have a few months away. Or you can kind of get additional budgetary relief from the cash if you would choose to do that. Now, we did have the cash discussion. That was really like last fall into December and then early again this year. One thing, and this is totally up to you, I'm just kind of throwing this out there, but one thing we're seeing from other, municipalities that we work with that are in a similar situation is, given all this uncertainty with, COVID-19 and revenues and, maybe you don't want to use your cash, that's fine too. Again, I don't know all the details of all your workings of finance, but, or you can do some variation of these numbers that we have in here, 250 and 400. I think Gwen and George just thought those were good placeholders to have the discussion. So
Zach, not to interrupt, but just a couple of quick questions,
Sure.
if the commissioners don't mind. So are there any restrictions on the use of the cash for this purpose? So, because what we're doing is we're taking money that was restricted to the sewer project and using it to pay off or prepay, in effect, the debt. Is that a legal problem?
So these are unspent proceeds of the 2011 issue?
Yes, I think. I may be wrong, but I do think that's what it is.
Well, so that's a good question, and that is important. My recollection was in 2015 when we used cash to pay off some of the debt that we did kind of get rid of the unspent proceeds. If we didn't, that we would want to know that.
We did. The bulk of
And-
the money that would be shown in these charts, the money that the cash contribution that would be shown is from savings from the 2015 refinancing, plus a little bit of just growth in the account over time. So we did use all of the 2011 proceeds towards the 15 one. So we don't have unspent actual bond proceeds left. This is just savings money that's left.
Good. So
Okay.
so that money would be that would be unrestricted money. So like the 250,000 in option 2. I mean, you can certainly use it for this, or you could use it for other projects, or you can keep it for a rainy day. That would be up to you. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
What other thoughts or questions do you have? No, we don't need an answer on what these things are tonight. These are just for you all to think about, as far as what you'd want to do.
Zach, that was, this is George, that was my question. When do we have to decide how much cash to contribute?
Well, we can decide that later. Even if we pass a debt ordinance in June, we technically wouldn't need to know the answer to that. We would probably want to know, we would set up the documents to include that you might be doing that. And then if you decide not to, that's fine. As far as the actual dollars, we would want to know that a week or two before we lock in interest rates. So sometime in July.
And for Amy and Dan, if you don't recall, and Harlan, the majority of the money that we have, in fact, as Gwen said, came from a premium on the last refi and some over collection of debt service, which was natural the way it was set up. And when Zach and Gwen and I, at least, and I think somebody else from Zach's office talked, depending upon how low the interest rates are, it may be very much to our advantage to throw as much cash as this as we can. So we can talk about that later, but with the interest rates the way they are, if they stay, and with Zach's recommendation, I think the general feeling is we're going to throw something at this.
Yeah, and George, that's a good point. That made me think the one other thing that's changed since we, had in-depth discussions about this is, now the investment rates, 3 months ago, you were earning some good return on your money. Now the Fed has lowered rates to 0. So I don't know what your investment rates are today, but they're certainly lower than they were, I would think, 2 or 3 months ago, unless you have a very willing bank. So, that's just another puzzle to think about, is that money now will be sitting, probably not earning very much, at least for the near term.
Hey, Zach. Hey, Zach and George.
Yes, sir.
To that point, as far as throwing cash at this as opposed to keeping it someplace else, I still think the money that is currently available is, I don't think it's available for general operating purposes. I think it is restricted to sewer related items. So it's not like you can underwrite your police department, or you can use the money to offset any other expenses wherever you choose. I mean, I think it makes, if I'm right, and it has to be limited to sewer related projects, you probably are better off throwing money at this and lowering your overall expense.
Gwen, this is in the sewer fund, correct? So I think
It is segregated money, yes. Yes, it is not part of our general fund at all. It's segregated.
So that's a good point to make to the public. Yeah, this isn't just general operating reserves. This is sewer specific.
Mm-hmm. Just a thought.
Any other questions for Zach?
So again, we don't need to know any of these things tonight. Tonight it would be helpful, assuming that we want to move forward with this, that we would authorize the team to proceed, and then we can come back at the June meeting to pass the debt resolution or the debt ordinance. And the one thing that we would want to think about in the meantime is what we want the minimum savings to be. Again, typical minimum savings for a transaction like this in Pennsylvania are, about $200,000. That would be the minimum. One thing you don't want to set it too high, because if it's not realistic, it'll be written into the resolution. So then if we set it at 500,000 and we're only at 475,000 in savings, legally we won't be able to move forward. So just kind of keep that in mind too when you're noodling on this over the coming weeks. And we can coordinate with Gwen to get something put into the debt resolution for that meeting then.
Well, to take care of tonight's business, I will move that the Board of Commissioners of Aleppo Township hereby authorize the administration to work with PFM Financial Advisors LLC as independent financial advisor, Dinsmore and Scholl as bond counsel, and Benning and Scattergood as underwriter in conjunction with the issuance of guaranteed sewer revenue bond series 2020 for the purpose of refinancing the township's guaranteed sewer revenue bond series 2015.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Zach, does that meet your need?
Yeah, that's what we need. We'll kind of get everything moving, and we'll see you next month. So have a nice Memorial Day. Stay healthy, and hopefully we can have a real in-person meeting here sometime soon.
We haven't taken a vote yet, but you can assume it'll pass.
Okay.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
Zach, you need to close out your
Yep, I'll stop sharing here.
Thank you, Zach.
Okay.
Thanks, Zach.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Zach.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, do I hear a motion relative to the finance?
move that we ratify April bill list in the amount of $68,700.90. That we ratify the April prepaid bills in the amount of $17,460.18. And then we ratify April payroll transfers in the amount of $22,041.76.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Judy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Do I hear a motion to approve the purchase?
A motion to approve the purchase of new street signs at the cost of $5,300.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I would just ask whether, given the memo that we got from our treasurer late this afternoon, whether we ought to postpone this for a month or so.
Gwen, didn't you say this project's been going on for like a year and a half though?
It was, and it was talked about. It's been a long process to get it here. I looked up some of the numbers, and to be able to get the the estimate of about $5,300. And in the 2018 budget, we were about $12,000 under in one of the public works categories. And there's a little bit left over in the 2019 budget from another public works line item. So it wouldn't be pulling from funds that we have yet to receive. We do have some left over from prior budgets that could cover this cost.
Okay. Call the question.
Is everybody able to hear that?
Yeah, there's still funds available in current budget and from previous budget. with that being said, I would continue the motion for the street signs.
And I think it's a good point. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
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 I think it's a good point. There are some other expenditures, Gwen, as an example, the security cameras, that I think we'll take a more careful look at until we get a handle on the second quarter.
That would be good.
I mean, I think, Dan, in general, I would think it unusual to see much of a diminishment in the property tax. I think the earned income tax will in fact be lower. I don't think we're tremendously vulnerable. I mean,
Realty transfer tax is likely to be lower too.
yep. So we'll just track it, and I think it's a good idea to be a little scotch for the time being.
Okay.
All right, so all in favor of purchasing the signs?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, do I hear, we've kind of discussed the revenue impact. We can discuss that further, and if anybody has thoughts, maybe they can communicate it by email. But I asked Clay to do that, and Gwen and I had talked. You know, I don't think it would be imprudent to assume a 10% reduction in revenues, which won't kill us, but it'll dip into some of our reserves. All right, do I hear a motion in regard to the oil and gas ordinance?
Move that we postpone the public hearing on the oil and gas amendment to the zoning ordinance until June 15, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do I hear a motion in regard to the commercial parking overlay?
Move to advertise an ordinance of Aleppo Township amending the zoning ordinance and zoning map to add a commercial parking overlay in the C2 Commercial Industrial District.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Marlon, does this meet your needs?
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do I hear a motion relative to sewer rates?
Motion to adopt an ordinance of Aleppo Township providing a revised schedule of rates for sewage service to Aleppo Township Authority customers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
She got you, Judy. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And now to Judy, an update on the emergency management situation.
We are status quo. I just heard today from Jonathan regarding a donation of PPE from Amazon to Masonic. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. And I just found out through the grapevine that a letter went out to Masonic residents that they're planning to reopen their dining rooms the week after next. So I have to touch base with Eric and find out what that's about, but that's too new to figure out yet.
Thank you. And again, thank you for all your good work. Is there any new business?
Yeah, I had something. I don't know whether Gwen was able to get it out or not, but I did prepare a resolution in case you wanted to take advantage of the real property tax relief provisions in Act 15. Act 15 allows you as a taxing body on real estate taxes only to extend the deadlines both for payment of the face amount and for the discount period. I didn't know from our previous conversations whether you had any interest in extending either of those deadlines, but in case you do, there's a resolution that would authorize you to do that.
Maybe we could have Gwen take a look at that and advise at our next meeting.
Yeah, by the next meeting, I would have even more information about the collections from all of May. And then we'll
Right.
know how on track or off track we are.
When
Yeah,
was the first discount period?
The first period, the discount period runs from March 1st through April 30th.
Right, so it's over.
Our bills go out March 1st.
Okay, so good idea. We can check to see what the collections are to this point and further discuss.
Right.
Any other new business?
I can just mention that the new intern
Close.
started today. And so you'll be seeing her around the township and around Kilbuck and Osborne. So she's starting today. She's not out in the field quite yet, but she'll be wearing a vest. She has an ID badge. So her name is Grace, and we welcome her to come to be here for the summer to work on our GIS database inventory.
Could you explain that a little more in detail, what she'll be doing?
She'll be going through the 3 municipalities that went in together on this intern project, and she will be taking pictures and plotting points on our GIS maps for the locations of street signs, catch basins, sewer outfalls, street name signs, and with the goal of building maps for the COG region that with different layers on a GIS map. So if we needed to find out how many stop signs we have and where they are and what they look like, we can click on that layer on the map. So it's an asset inventory project for the 3 communities that went in together on this. And it's through the local government academy, so that the LGA will be providing 50% of her salary funding for the summer.
Okay, I think it sounds good. Any other new business?
a question for Gwen. Gwen, are you going to be attending that ASO plan
I will.
meeting May 20th?
Yes, to Zoom meeting on Wednesday evening, yes.
What do you expect that to entail?
I think we haven't met in a while because one of the other municipalities was working on a riverfront overlay that didn't affect Aleppo, so they didn't need Aleppo involved in that portion of it. I expect it to be a presentation, probably, an online presentation of the draft of the plan. We got the link to it just the other day, and I'm happy to send that out to everyone. It's a link to the plan that's in their Dropbox or something, and it talks about the different regional goals that Aleppo, Sewickley, and Glen Osborne have as they work together. The goal then is to take the information from that, and then we all will go back and revise our individual zoning ordinances. That will be the process that starts from that, and that also will take a good year probably to revise the different zoning ordinances.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
This isn't necessarily new business, but I'm not sure if we were clear. I know we've mentioned it now in our meetings about a donation, but I just wanted to be clear for the community watching, as much as we have discussed Amazon and their dealings. The donation that Judy referenced is coming from Jonathan Conway, who is the plant manager over there at the Amazon. Who has an abundance of masks, sanitizer, gloves, paper towels, and other necessities needed for PPE. That is a very generous donation that Judy's going to facilitate moving tomorrow from Amazon over to Masonic Village for the community. So I just want to make sure that that was fully stated and clear for the community to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
And to both Judy and Amy, I think it's wonderful. The more we establish a good relationship with Amazon, that's always better than not.
Yeah, absolutely. And he just reached out to me randomly for it, and he wanted to make sure that they were helping. And I think they had their stockpile handled, and they were calculating out what they would need and knew that they had an overage and wanted to make sure it went to the community.
Any other new business or comments?
I'll just add that we did not get any citizen participation emails during the meeting. So I've not had any participation before or now.
Any more comments or new business?
No,
Meeting adjourned.
thank you.
Gwen, stick for just a minute.